Welcome to Chasing Impact, Not Sales, where heart meets hustle, strategy meets service, and selling feels good again. I'm your host, Mandy Minatello. Let's go. Hey, welcome to Chasing Impact, Not Sales. I am Mandy Minatello, your host, and we're going to talk about a dirty word today. The word audit makes people tense. As a mentor once told me, it's one of those butt pucker words, when you say something and you just get tense all the way down. And it's kind of funny because as a sales consultant, I come in and get to be the superhero. Kind of puts out fires, uncovers issues, and solves problems in companies. And oftentimes the problems arise or they've arisen just because they're too close to it and they're too in depth to kind of see where the problems that are sometimes quite obvious are coming from and what is creating this acceleration that they feel. And so I'll start off with an audit. And I'll tell the founders, the CEO, whoever, that my first step is that I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a full scale audit. And I've realized that word audit makes people more tense than anything else. When leaders hear it, they're immediately assuming that it's about performance reviews and blame or someone coming in to point out everything that's broken. And suddenly, and maybe I'm going to age myself here, but I become like oh my gosh, I can't remember their names, but there was two guys with the same name in that movie Office Space. And they come in and everybody understood that their whole purpose was to figure out who was going to get fired, whose jobs were unnecessary, who was responsible for profit margin bleeding, all the things. And that was their entire job. And people think that's what I'm coming in for when I say that I'm going to audit. Most leaders think that I'm looking for blame. Most teams assume that a sales audit is about identifying the weakest performers or critiquing their script. But what I'm here to clarify is that is not what a real sales audit is at all. A real sales audit is about clarity. It's about slowing down long enough to understand what's actually happening inside of the sales system before we try to fix anything. Again, it's when someone is so close to a problem that they're missing the forest for the trees. They're missing what's oftentimes so obvious. And all that they're seeing is that the revenue has gotten unpredictable. And their instinct is to push harder. We need more calls. We need more leads. We need more pressure. We need more bells and whistles. We need to follow someone else's playbook. We need to follow someone else's tactic. And we need to be checking out what everyone else is doing. And oftentimes it also leads to we need to buy this shiny thing and try that shiny thing. And the thing is, when you don't take that moment to really step back and create that clarity, then what you're revealing is that when the underlying system isn't clear, then all they're doing is accelerating. And that acceleration really leads to just massive confusion. And everyone's trying to work harder or work more or create more or try more. But what the sales audit does is it's not at all about fixing people. It's about creating understanding of systems, reading signals, and identifying gaps. Most of the time, what I find is that when leaders feel frustrated with their sales performance or they're starting to feel anxiety because the revenue isn't predictable, they assume that the issue lives with individuals. Those individuals could be in any of the silos of their business. It could be in sales, it could be in marketing, it could be in ops, but they're thinking it's a particular person's problem, usually the sales team, usually some sales rep. But in my experience, the issue is rarely in an individual, and it's much more likely to be structural. When there is inconsistency being felt with the revenue generation, there is almost always breakdowns in the system that no one has had the opportunity to step back and examine. And the reality is you cannot improve what you cannot clearly see. And until you understand the system that your team is operating inside of, every change you make, every opportunity you try, every straw that you grasp at, you're just making a guess. And that is unhelpful. Just guessing at this and guessing at that. We've all heard it. Throwing spaghetti at the walls, hoping something sticks. It's not going to work. And even when something does stick, you've thrown so much spaghetti at the wall, you're not really sure where it came from. So when I come in and I begin to look at a sales system, I don't start with scripts. I don't start with personalities. I start with tracing the buyer journey. I start of how does someone actually move from first awareness to becoming a client? This means that a sales audit is not siloed to the sales team. This is where the conversation has to begin between the silos within a business, sales, ops, and marketing. Because when you follow a client journey from their first experience, that first touch, the first time they become aware that your business or opportunity exists, all the way through them becoming your highest level client, you have to look at each and every transition in there. Where are the decision points? Where does the momentum build? And here's the kicker. You're also identifying where does that momentum die down? And when you really think about it, lead generation is marketing. The process that you go through is ops. Conversion is sales. And all of these need to be working together almost like an infinity loop to make that customer journey from awareness to conversion and then to become a referral partner and beyond. That can't be done by one person. That can't be done by one silo. So you have to look at the transitions and where the decisions are being made. You also look closely at the internal handoffs, marketing to sales, sales to onboarding, consult calls to follow up, all of that, all of those handoffs, because many times the breakdown that we talk about where things are inconsistent, where things are unpredictable, it's not actually in the sales conversation itself. It's not in that script. It's not that magic word that's missing or that magic strategy that's not being put into place. It's happening sometimes before the conversation even begins with the sales department. And it's something in the systems or after the call when no one's really sure who owns that next step. So often that happens. They're converted in and then there's this like holding tank. Until they start getting their customer service involved. So there's so much more. It's not a person. I don't start an audit with personality alignment. I don't start it with motivation, and I certainly don't start it with some kind of conversation or coaching about just try harder. These personality assessments, motivational tactics, try harder conversations, that's often what leaders will jump to first. That's often when they say, we've tried everything before I come in. And it's 100%, I can tell you, they miss the real issue. So, why would you have an audit? Why would you do this? It really, you answer three questions through an audit. These three questions will come to light and get answered. Every sale audit ultimately will answer these things. First, what is already working and should be protected? Most teams overlook this because they're like 100% focused on what needs fixing and ready to throw the entire baby out with the bathwater. But strong systems will protect what's already producing results. So you want to make sure that what is working is protected. And above all, let's keep that. So that's number one. We look at like, what are you really, killing it with? And then second, what's unclear or inconsistent or feels fragile? This is where you'll hear that word burnout come up because there are certain things that are only working because certain individuals are carrying them solely. Without that one individual, that thing would break down. The whole world would shut down. Our business is gone. La la. This is where the real stress lies. It's not in what's not working. It's what's not sustainable. And this often is a process that isn't clearly defined. It's an SOP that's not written down, or it's dependent on what they call tribal knowledge, which are the people who say, I have all kinds of SOPs. They're just in my head. That poor person can't take a week off. They can't take a day off. They sometimes can't go out to lunch because there are things that only they know. And it just needs to be made into a process. But this second step, this unclear, is where the biggest issues lie. Because in our world right now, there are some buzzwords that you hear a lot of: burnout, anxiety. These all lie in this part. It's not the part that's not working altogether. It's the part that's inconsistent or fragile. And then the third question that every audit answers is, what is costing us momentum right now? What is blocking us from getting to that goal? We're on our way from A to Z, whether that is revenue, time, freedom, more clients, whatever, right? But there are things that are slowing you down, stalling you out, or disappearing altogether. And where are those opportunities? Once you identify those opportunities and you answer the questions about what is inconsistent and unclear and what is absolutely working and we should protect it, once you answer those questions, now you're gaining clarity. Now you can get somewhere. And sometimes this can take a little while to uncover all this, but you see the beauty in uncovering all this is where real momentum lies. The problem is that all too often, teams completely skip this step of the audit. And it's understandable why. They want to skip to the next thing because this time to slow down and really take a look and uncover feels slower than just taking action. Leaders want to stop the problem and solve it quickly. And so they launch new campaigns and implement new tools and hire new reps or retrain their team or whatever. And they're focusing on the individuals and trying to make quick fixes and creating pressure and creating an atmosphere of adversity, resentment, certainly burnout. And when you skip the clarity step, what you're really creating your business is churn. You end up rebuilding systems that don't need rebuilding. You create rework for people who are already working really hard. You create confusion between and amongst all three silos and burnout across the board. Slowing down for clarity actually speeds up the right kind of progress, which is what you want, which is what you came for. Here's the truth. Most teams, I don't want to say 100% because there are exceptions, but most teams do not need more leads. They do not need another training program. They do not need more hustle. What they usually need is alignment. I love that word, alignment. They need alignment between the offer, the buyer's readiness, the sales process, and the people delivering it. And when those pieces are all aligned, then the sales begin to feel much more natural and predictable. When those pieces are aligned, the people behind the pieces are aligned, which means the silos are working in conjunction. Sales, marketing, ops, they're sharing in the responsibility. And when that's all aligned, then you're starting to operate like a predictable revenue generating machine. When they're not aligned, even the most talented salespeople struggle. And it's not solely their issue. So here's a simple question to sit with. If someone asked you to clearly explain how your sales system works today, could you? Could you map out how a prospect becomes a client from start to finish? Meaning, how are they first introduced to you all the way through becoming a high-level client and referral partner? Or would parts of that answer feel fuzzy? That fuzziness is usually where your momentum is being lost. And that is the beginning of your audit. Sales audits create confidence first, clarity first, then produce change. They protect your people from unnecessary pressure, unnecessary burnout, and unnecessary scope creep. They protect your brand from reactive decisions that draw you away from where you started this in the first place. Yeah, everybody starts with the why, but when you start making reactive decisions, you move further and further and further away from your why, and you create confusion amongst your prospects because they start to lose you. And audits protect your revenue from systems that are breaking down without you noticing. They also will protect your revenue from profit margin that is shrinking because you're trying and buying the new things. If you want intentional growth, start with clarity. Because once you see your system clearly, the next right move becomes obvious. We often say you don't have to see the whole path in front of you. You just have to see the next best step. And when you're too busy looking at the entire path, you miss the next best step. And that step could be the first step towards the dream that you have. Don't shy away from an audit. Embrace it. It's the clarity you need to get to where you're going that makes the difference in your business. It's that simple. I'd love to help you. If you're looking for some support in a sales audit, reach out. But it all starts with taking that deep dive, and don't be afraid. I just remembered the guy's name was Bob, the two Bobs in Office Space. Not all audits are the two Bobs coming in with doom and gloom. They're often the shining, smiley support system that you need. Embrace it. I'm happy to help you. And with that, I'm going to say, let's go. Thanks for listening to Chasing Impact, Not Sales. If this episode sparked something, share it, subscribe, and remember, real sales come from real service. Keep chasing impact.